Morning, everybody. This is the third talk in the Lokadharmi Theatre Talk series. Uh, Today we have our dear friend, one of the most important directors of India, Mr. Bansi Kaul, talking to us with us. And I see a lot of important people from different parts of the world joining in. So, hearty welcome to everybody. So very briefly, there's no need to introduce to theater people, but just for the sake of doing it, let me introduce him very briefly. He was born in Kashmir, in Jammu. His theater group is based in Bhopal, and he mostly stay in. So he is from Kashmir, from Bhopal, or I don't know. He's from India everywhere. So I saw Bansi Kaul in the early 80s. I think 85, 86, 84, 85, 86. When he was regularly coming to choose School of Drama, teach, to do workshops, to direct plays. So actually, I've been. I was not a student of the School of Drama, but a visitor there. I was just watching and observing how Bansi Kaul is doing his workshop, teaching the students. So I have actually studied from him without being a former student. So I'm very happy to do that at that time. I remember his productions in Kerala, in Malayalam, Andanum, Adagodanum, written by G. Shankara Pillai. I think Pundile Singidi also is directed by Bansi. So many productions he has done in Malayalam. And of National School of Drama. After passing out from NSD, he joined in the repertory of NSD, and then as a faculty, as a professor of NSD, which he left in 1984 to move to Bhopal and start his own company, a unique group named Ranga Vidushak. I'm lucky to see 3-4 productions of the company. I remember Kahan Kabir, that play based on the life of Kabir, and some other productions. He has done very important productions, including Peer Giant by Ibsen, and adaptation of Brecht, a play known as Dhobi Khatse, Mazan Khatak. I think I have seen Tamasha Khan Ki Gasab Dastan also. So many productions. The unique style of Bansi. Bansi is a very good designer, and I was little struck that when I saw certain paintings and sketches of Bansi in Facebook recently. So it is great paintings, and so I just wrote back. Say, you do painting also. You do wonderful sketches. He said, yes, I belong to that, and then I moved to theater. So his sets and designs are so simple, direct, but the lines, graphic, colors, and textures are so mutually complementing to the whole play. So he's a very good designer, he's a good director, and he's a good acting trainer. He has worked in children's theater, and he takes theater in a very most simplistic way, and do productions with the actors at the center of it, and he has a very good flavor for comedy and laughter. And the name itself is Ranga Vidushak. It's clowns. All the characters are clowns. The clowns performing characters and narrating the story. It's an adaptation of Panther. I think Bansi will himself discuss about these things, which are the sources of his productions. How do he work with actors? How do he design things? How to create his narrativity, etc. So is one of the most dear friends we have in theater, and also, yeah, to end it with the awards he has got numerous awards from Uttar Pradesh, from Bhopal, and including the Central Sangeet Nata Academy Award, the Kalidas Samman Award, and of course the Padma Shri in 2014, I think. So you have a very versatile personality who agreed to come and talk. He'll be basically focusing his talk on actor and the space, and it's he's free to improvise it, and he does a lot of improvisation in his productions. He makes his productions by making actors improvise and getting things done on that. So he's free to improvise this talk also, and we can all join together and have a discussion about these things. Uh, Thank you, Bansi, and welcome, Bansi. You can take it over.
Thank you, all of you. My regards to all of you. I hope everybody is fine. And I hope after COVID-19, when we meet again in real, we'll be in a different world and doing a different kind of theater in a different space. And I wish you all of you good health. Some of you I know, and some of you I knowing today, and all regards to all of you. I thought that I would talk about actor and space. The reason was my simpler why I wanted to take this. Because after there are two things which makes theater. One is actor, who is the main fulcrum of a performance, and he performs on a particular what we call a given space. And everybody confuses space only with the dead space, which is stage, which is a platform. Platform is like a launching pad actually for actor, where from he jumps and creates his own spaces. Every time, if I have to give certain examples that how it works with the actor, I always have to go back, which most of us do that. We always go back to one's own childhood because your childhood memories are always the best, what you call support to your own ideas. And, it's a kind of a what you call Shastra to you because people will go back into the Shastras to find out that how I do my own creative work. But my own Shastra, if I find what is Bansi Kaul Shastras, my Shastra is my own childhood, which has taught me a lot. And it is true with everybody. What's important that all of us need to go back to one's own childhood and see how things have happened to us and how nature has played a major role in our performance or in our activity which we are doing today. Just to give you an example, what really fascinated me as a child, I was born in Kashmir and not very well off, which most of us who are in theater, either they are very well off, either they are not well off. But they are intellectually well off and they're beautiful people. And as a child, when the moment, if it was very cold in the night, so we would imagine that it's going to snow tomorrow and there'll be snowfall. And as children, we would wait for this snowfall for two reasons. One reason was that we'll go and collect snow and put it in a piece of paper and make some kind of envelope, put it in an envelope and run with this to your uncle and tell him, okay, this is the first snow, therefore, what you call Mubarak, snow Mubarak. Mubarak, what do you call in? You know that? Huh? There's no congratulations. First snow congratulations. The idea was that the uncle will give you some money because you have congratulated him with the first snowfall. So every child would get a boat. They won't sleep whole night. Sometimes they will sit on the windows and fall asleep there. And the mothers will pick them and put them into the beds. But they will again get up and wait for the snowfall to see that who is going to carry the first snowfall and run to uncle's place. This was one thing which fascinated me a lot because I think actually the way this child ran from one space and to cover another space to get something out of that. That's what actor does actually. He gets onto the space and runs into the other space. Therefore, in between these two spaces, from house to uncle's space, there is the space in between is the actor's space to me. Because he does something in between these two spaces. This is one thing which fascinates me a lot and which I have used a lot in my work. The another thing was that, when snow would fall, it used to create a whole white sheet on the ground. So you could see this white sheet from your window and look at the next house is what you call the terrace, or what you call the chat, and that whole roof would be white, like a white sheet, like a white canvas. And now this canvas has not been, this canvas you could see never being touched actually. It was just white as one big canvas whose size is 80 feet by 100 feet. Now this 80 feet by 100 feet canvas used to fascinate me a lot. And then suddenly small birds will come and hop on it. And while hopping on the snow, they will create these certain formations. Dots, 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 dots all over. It's like on a desert. In a desert, if you see somebody walking, so you are creating certain formations. And then these formations always remained in my head. And then what we'll do, the moment this bird has created a certain formation, a circle, triangle, or a zigzag line, so we as children will shoo away this bird, the bird will fly away. Which means after creating this great drawing with his feet, he will get into the space which is unlimited. So you'll fly into that unlimited space. For me, that space is actually the actor's space, which is unlimited space. So you jump from a space which is solid, which is snow, and you make certain drawings on it, then you suddenly fly into some other space, which is unimaginable. And then another bird will come and he will create a drawing and then again fly into the oblivion and create a space in the minds of the audiences or in the minds of children. This is one game which we played. Another game was when not on the terrace, these birds will walk in the garden on the snow, what you call snow canvas, and we'll see this bird running, making these formations. Then we as children will follow those formations, the formations which the bird has created. Now those formations were actually 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Then when we walked onto those formations, it became 1 centimeter became 6 inch by 6 inch. That was the size of your shoe or your size of your feet. So there were formations created on a certain formation. Probably that remained in my mind all through my life. That actor is like that he comes onto the stage, he takes a round on the stage, he makes these formations which a bird has made, and then he wipes these formations and flies into another direction. So what remains with the audience is these formations. Because formations always remain with the audiences, so therefore audiences imbibe them into their intellect. So it's these many more formations which actor keeps on creating on this what you call dead space, making the space alive by walking on it or by creating different designs, and then allows audiences to remember it. And then he washes it and creates another formation. So if you look at when an actor who is walking on this what we call empty space, what we call actually a akhada actually. I would not like to use it word as akhada. I would like to use word akhada much more than a space. I'm sure Kalari means that actually, the space where you come and do something. So this akhada of actor, why I'm saying why we need to use word akhada than empty space, because akhada has many more meanings in our context, within our own sensibility. Akhada is a place where wrestlers can come and create some kind of a game. Akhada is where people can come and sit together and have a discussion. That's also a akhada. Two warriors can come and fight with each other. That's also a akhada. Therefore, akhada has many meanings. And there are three, in fact, then we have In our sensibility, in our vocabulary, what I call in the tribal or a folk vocabulary, they always use these three words. They say that we perform in three akhadas actually. When I was working with acrobats, once I asked them this question that how do you perform and where all do you perform? If I had asked this question to an urban actor, he would immediately answer to say, tell you, well, I perform in so-and-so auditorium or I perform in so-and-so stage. But the street acrobat didn't say that he was performing in a street or in an auditorium or in a certain space. He would say, no, no, I perform at three places. Then I would ask him, which are the three places? He will say, a space, one space is the ground where I perform. Second space is the mid-air, where there's a rope, he will walk on that rope, that's the mid-air space. And then the third space is actually, which is actually the sky, which is anhad actually. Therefore, there are three spaces for him. So if I try to relate these three spaces to my own childhood, that after what was this bird doing actually? Bird was performing in these three spaces. When, on this what you call white sheet, which was a snow sheet. And so was I trying to do it when I wanted to do theatre. So I wanted, was wanting to explain it to my actors. Can we perform in three spaces? But then these actors understood it. It did not take me time. It did not take a lot of time for actors to understand it because all actors had their own three spaces. Somebody who came from a coastal area, he had his own three spaces. He would go back to his own childhood. He would say, yes, I used to see a bird in the water, trying to catch a fish. That's the particular bird which swims in the water and jump and, takes out a fish. Then he would fly. So for the water became actually the one space. Then flying out became a second space. Or somebody who came from the deserts. So therefore the desertscape became a kind of a, three spaces. So everybody has an argument actually. Therefore, it's only, we need to try to tell people, look, please go back to your own childhood, you will find multiple spaces. And it's these spaces which ultimately belong to actor. Therefore, what is actor? Obviously, nothing belongs to actor. Text belongs to playwright. And design belongs to a designer. A theatre building belongs to an architect or a manager or an owner. Now, what does belong to actor? What belongs to actor is ultimately the space which is not created by any of us. A space which is not created by a playwright. A space which is not created by an architect or a carpenter. Therefore, he creates his own spaces. Then only he can justify himself, look, I am a master of multiple spaces. Now, how does he do that actually? Actor uses actually his whole body to create these multiple spaces. Therefore, he uses his gesture to create a space. He uses his finger to create a space. He uses his what you call arm to create a space. He uses his shoulder to create a space. And he uses his eyes to create a space. Therefore, the way he looks at you, he's actually looking into the space and trying to tell you whether he's 2 feet away from you or 200 feet away from you. That's how he uses his eyes. Or if he looks at you, he says, he uses his finger, he tells you, hello, how are you? Then he uses the same finger, he says, look there. Which means, from a space, how are you, was a space where both of them are standing. And then he says, you look there. Look there means somewhere, which means he is taking you out from the physical space into an imaginary space. Therefore, he has a habit of using these imaginary spaces and create his own geometrical forms on stage. Now, the body becomes actually the extension of a space. Now, body has its own limitations. It can go up to a certain extent. It can say, look there. It can be 100 miles, it can be 200 miles, or it can take you out into the space which is infinite, which is what you call in Hindi say unginit, which you can't measure. But then how does he measure that space which is limitless, which is anahad, which is, which can't be measured? That is the time when he uses his voice actually. Voice and song. Therefore, sound becomes his measuring tape of that space. That's why that we say where physicality ends, the sound starts actually. Where physicality limits itself, that's where the sound, you say, you create a major, even if you shout, it's like saying, it's again going back to the child, how I would define it if I would exemplify it. In hills, this must be true in Kerala also. When somebody who is on the top of a hill and is coming down through that what you call that zigzag road, which is created by a villager themselves. So he's creating some kind of he's coming down, and then from the top hill, he's shouting at somebody who is downhill. Therefore, he's creating that a kind of a measurement through his voice by saying, "Hello, how are you?" Therefore, he uses his voice as a measuring tape, and and then this measuring tape, now to make it measuring tape look more stylized and more beautiful, so he adds music to it. Therefore, there is an element of musicality to it. Now, this musicality is important to his voice because then only he can give us some kind of a pause to his own, the space which he has created. Sometimes you can't keep on creating a limitless space. You have to give a certain pause to it so that audiences can relax and give them time to think. Or even actor also needs the time to think in between to create another space. Now it's like saying, like again going back to the bird comes, he hops onto the snow, what you call snow sheet, does on one drawing, then flies away. Then another bird comes and he comes and he hops on the snow, creates another drawing. So it's multiple birds, many birds coming together, creating their own drawings. Ultimately, all drawings come together and it creates some kind of a tableau actually. It creates some kind of an image. And these images are actually transported into the audience's mind. Therefore, actor actually delivers these different spaces to him or takes these audiences out of his own physical space into an imaginary space where probably he would not otherwise go. Because the moment he comes into the auditorium or any space where you are performing, the audiences think that now this is where he is going to be there for next 2 hours. Actually, he is not there for next 2 hours. He's only there for first 5 minutes. Actor takes him out into different spaces actually. He makes him to travel into different universe. He makes him to travel to a village. He makes him to travel into different landscapes of this country. Therefore, he is actually a guide, he tells him, look, boss, you have come here, take rest for 5 minutes before I take you into another journey. So be ready for the another journey. So therefore, he's like a bird. He comes and takes a round on the stage, creates these images and drawings for him till the time the spectator is settled, and then tells him, come on now, boss, you have to fly with me. I'm going to take you to another space. So audiences agree with him, and then there is this whole idea of traveling with him. The whole travelogue starts. The whole beginning of a traveling starts between an actor and a spectator or a co-actor. So therefore, I see this actor, when I say actor space, why I wanted to call this actor space? Because every space is ultimately actor space. Every gesture is ultimately actor's space. Because he uses his gesture in multiple ways to create a limited spaces. If he uses his hand, within that hand, if he closes this hand, he has created a one space, then he opens it, he creates another space, then he takes second hand, he creates another space. So he's basically playing there's this whole dialogue between what we call infinite space and a space which he is defining. Therefore, it's important. That's what I was wanting to do in my whatever little good bad theatre I do. Because I never wanted to be in what you call proscenium spaces. Although I was, whenever there's a theatre festival, you will be invited to perform, and you'll be invited to perform in a what you call a closed house or auditorium. Now the challenge for us was, once you are getting into this very formalistic space, how to break that formalistic space into the space which I believe in, or my performers or my friends and my colleagues believe in. So therefore that initially it was very difficult. But our training, performing in different physical spaces and transforming those physical spaces into another imaginary spaces, helped us a lot to break even those formal spaces into multiple spaces. And how did we do it actually? For us, it was these acrobats who actually helped us. So when we were trying to, you see, the kind of theatre I do is not a theatre of actually comedy. It's a theatre I call theatre of celebration. I call it theatre of collective. So because it's a theatre of collective, and then at the same time, I have to pick up some kind of a philosophy which becomes my protagonist in the theatre. Now, what was that protagonist? I had to search for him. Who's my protagonist in my theatre? You see, somebody's protagonist can be, let's say, a laborer can be his protagonist. A king can be his protagonist. A child can be his protagonist. I said, no, well, these are all protagonists who are there actually, we know about them. I said, could laugh be the protagonist? Could silence be the protagonist? Could crying be the protagonist? Could water be the protagonist? So therefore we were wondering when we were sitting together, all of us, talking to each other, I said, okay, laugh is the one philosophical word which should become our protagonist, and we should do things around this idea of laugh. Now for us, laugh was not just a protagonist only, but we wanted to find out how does this laugh really represent what you call a samaj in which we live. How is it different than the samaj? Is he a part of the samaj, or has he come from somewhere else? So one realized that ultimately what makes human beings special is that because nature has been very kind to human beings, that it has given an extra emotion to human beings. That is the emotion of laugh. Because animals can smell, they can cry, they can shout, but I don't think animals can laugh, because it's only humans who can laugh. Therefore, laugh became a kind of element for us to do things around. So therefore, laugh became a kind of a vocal protest. Therefore, it became a sound also. Because ultimately what we feel that the century in which, the times in which we are living, you can easily show certain things. For instance, if there are floods in Kerala, or if say 5,000 people have died in a village, it can easily become a news, and you can reach millions of people through television or other mediums and say so many people died. So therefore we have to decide between a news and a content. Now what was content 30 years ago before this technology came in is now a news actually. But then if you say that a village of 10,000 people have stopped laughing, is it a news or a content? To me, it's a content. Because this village's strength was their laugh. The village's protest was their laugh. And the day he's being deprived of this laugh, which means that he's deprived of thinking, he's deprived of protest. Therefore, we thought, why not to do things around this word laugh? And laugh became for us a protagonist. At the same time, laugh became a kind of a celebration also. Because if you see the manifestations of laugh, it has many more laugh can cry also, but cry can't laugh. Laugh can shout also. Laugh can reach hundreds and thousands of miles because the sound, it's a sound which is controllable. Therefore, laugh between one giggle to another giggle, there is a pause because you don't constantly laugh. You don't constantly, I've yet to see somebody who can laugh for 20 minutes without giving a pause because ultimately laugh has got to do with your breathing. Therefore, that pause in the laugh, it is actually creating a different kind of a space. It's a kind of a, you know, it's a kind of a moment where you want to think of a different laugh. Therefore, these are these pauses actually, which I thought was important to see as a, actor's voice in terms of, thinking. So the thinking also becomes a kind of a space. It creates a different kind of space in your mind. Another thing which we thought was very important, again, going back to my childhood, you will say that I'm obsessed with my childhood. After this discussion, most of you will be obsessed with your childhood because there's something really great has happened when we were children. because I see my performance or anybody else's performance, even if I look at your performance, if I come and watch your performance, I will look at your performance not as a one long story. And I will not look at it as a one, long narrative. And neither will I look at it as a what you call a one linear narrative. I will look at your play or my own play as a small, what you call tableaus, the small images. That every time actor, shifts from one image to another image. So therefore he creates a lot of small tableaus. So if you break your whole play into segments, you will find that each play is a hundreds and thousands and millions of tableaus actually, images which have been put together into a kind of a garland. That's what makes it a play. But this garland is not very tight. It's very loose actually, this whole garland. It's loose because you can keep on adding many more tableaus to it whenever you feel like doing it. So it's not a chain which is fixed chain, which is not welded together, but the chain which can be broken to bring in other images into it. And who does that? Actor does it, and actor creates these. He has this habit of bringing in these elements of another spaces into it. Either he does it through his sound, either he does it through his gesture, either he does it through his laugh. So therefore, anybody's production, or for all of us, whenever we do production, we don't do a one long story. We are doing a whole play, which is a play of multiple images and multiple tableaus. Now, how do you learn it? When I say that I go back to childhood, it's only that because there are two kinds of children in this country. One are children who are very bohemian, who parents have no control over their children. They keep on, running in the streets and lanes. And there are children who are very disciplined by the parents. They don't let them go out. They tell them to stay home and then to school and school to home. And they don't allow them to run in the fields or in the lanes. Since I was a vagabond child, so I used to run away from my house and go without asking anybody, jumping into the rivers and running in my lanes and running in the streets, meeting other children like any street dogs actually, I would say. But then while doing that, actually I was collecting a lot of these images which got actually ingrained into my head. And these images, these tableaus. Now what are these tableaus? These tableaus are actually fixed shops which I saw. Now if I'm running in a street, so I see small shops. Like these small shops, I see a milkman's shop, I see a vegetable vendor shop, I see a toy shop, and I see all kinds of shops. And now these shops are actually frames to me. They're like frames. And these frames I put together as images when I do my play. And at the same time, they are mobile, what you call scenic designs. They are mobile designs. They are mobile set designs actually, which I put together. Therefore, my set design or a set on this in a play is not static. It's not a one dead object on the stage. Therefore, even a scenic element for me has to become an actor, because scenic element has to move. It should not be a dead object. Otherwise, there's no reason to be a designer. Actually, designer ultimately, it is even if you put an ordinary piece of cloth on stage, but that piece of cloth also is a performer. And now, who makes him to perform is actually the actor. Therefore, he starts playing with it. Therefore, as a designer also, I see a lot of space being created, or new spaces created by this performer when he is using these images. Now, these are the things actually which when I say that why actor and space is important, and why these things are important, and how I have been using it in my theatre. Another area which we thought was important for all of us, because we don't have, look at, all of us work in smaller towns. Some work in major towns. There's only major towns where you have auditoriums or closed houses. But the rest of the year, when there are monsoons, then probably you go inside your houses. Most of the time we are outside, Therefore, we have to use any space is ultimately actor space. The moment you make it a habit that any space is a performance space and any space is actor space, then probably you won't need auditorium. You will keep on trying all kinds of things. We used to have one interesting, we called it study tour with our actors. So I would request them, I said, look, I'll only buy you a train ticket and please take a tour from Bhopal to Chennai. And I don't want to see you before 1 month. So they will say, but where will we eat? I said, that's your problem. I'm only giving you a train fare. Go, because Indians are great travelers. They know how to find their food. They know how to go and meet people. So what they did, it was a challenge for them. So they would go every day. They will travel around 50 or 60 kilometers. So they had made an itinerary. And this itinerary, they will find who are their friends from Bhopal to Chennai. So they will call him. They say, we are coming there. And please arrange food for 10 people. So in India, it's very easy that, we do arrange. We don't say, why, when are you coming? Please tell me whether I can. But that is something habit with us, that even if I write to my friend or tell him I'm coming tomorrow, he say, you're most welcome, right? So they would go reach their town and ask this friend of theirs to look after their food, and he will look after their food. And then they'll say, we want to perform. This friend of theirs will say, where will you perform? Why we have no auditorium? They'll say, no, take us to some school, take us to some small broken monument, or take us to a field. So the idea was exploring new performing spaces. So they would come back after a month in which they would have explored at least 100, 200 spaces and performed at different places with different people and the different experiences. So they will just come back. The idea was basically to develop a repertoire of gestures, a repertoire of sounds, a repertoire of spaces. Because when we use word repertoire, we say that so-and-so is a repertory company. But what do you mean by a repertory company? By repertory company, we mean that a company which has 6 plays running, which means that they can perform for 6 days. So 6 plays become 6 repertoires. But that's a play actually. There's a whole big play. Actor has its own repertoires. An actor needs to collect a lot of repertoires for himself. To give you an example, I was once talking to a Gondal performer in Maharashtra, because Gondal, this friend of mine would know what I'm talking about. Gondal performers have a habit that in 10 minutes time or 15 minutes time or 20 minutes time, you give them any subject, they will create some performance piece. And it's not true only with Gondal performers, with all theatre forms in the streets where they have this, they can develop a performance piece within 10 minutes or within 15 minutes. Now, how do they do it actually? When I asked this gentleman, how do you do it? He said the problem sometimes when me as an urban man, when we ask questions, we think that I have asked a brilliant question. Because I think I'm very brilliant as an urban man. So we go with this heavy, like what you call something, that I'm going to ask this gentleman. This is going to be a heavy question and he will have no answer. Actually, the moment you start asking a question which is something very great for you, he just, he snubs you and he gives you a simple answer and then makes you to realize how stupid you are. So that's what he did actually. When I said, how do you make these performance pieces in 10 minutes and 15 minutes? He said, it's so simple. I said, how is it so simple? He said, no, it's very simple. So I kept on insisting, no, how is it simple? So he kept on saying, no, it's very simple. I said, please tell me what is simple about it. He said, no, as a child, my father taught me 200 songs and I learned them and I put them in my bag. He says, then he taught me how to jump in different way, how to do somersaults, acrobatic. So I learned all those tricks and I put them in my bag. So he taught me how to use your hand. So I learned these 200 ways of using my gestures, so I put them in my bag. He said that my bag is full of these repertoires. It's full of gestures, it's full of sounds, it's full of jumps, it's full of songs, it's full of everything which actor needs. He says, whenever I need, I only have to remember where are those repertoires lying. So he says, I put my hand into my bag and I take out the toy, which is a toy of a gesture, and I use it. Therefore, I create a play. Therefore, it was important for all of us, for urban actors, to tell them, boss, like Gondal performer has created its repertoire to perform and to perform a play in 5 minutes, we also need to create our own repertoires. So therefore, the idea of training came up, that we need to train our actors, even if they are evening actors, even if they are not full-time actors, but actors need to be, when they do these exercises every day, what you call abhyas every day, or you develop certain exercises or training systems for them, you are creating training system for him not to become a wrestler, but you are actually trying to develop a repertoire for him. So he is collecting a repertoire from this training. That's why we thought that why should we get training? How should we train our actors? So what we did, we thought that we will not train our actors from the already art forms which are existing, which are already codified. Because art forms which are already codified, it becomes very difficult to decodify them and create a new art form. It's so difficult. After all, Kathakali is very codified art form. So it's Kodiyatam, they are highly codified art form. It becomes very difficult to create another art form out of it. So we thought, let's take art forms which are not art forms in a conventional sense. So let's take unconventional what you call forms, which are not theater forms, and see if we can create our training system from it. So we went to acrobats, we went to akhadas, we went to jugglers, we went to non-theater forms, and we started collecting them and we started doing a survey on them. So first survey we did with some of my friends, some of my colleagues. We said that let's go and I started, idea of living in Madhya Pradesh was not because, it was because of that, because Madhya Pradesh, those days, where Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh was a one state, and it used to cover 9 states. So it was easier for me to go to these 9 states. So Madhya Pradesh became a central point for me to travel. So we went from place to place. So we covered around 2,000 villages, collecting data from the acrobats, who they are, where do they perform. And interestingly, as a theatre director and as a performer, we did not know what questions we should ask. So ultimately, I had to go to G. Shankar Pillai, who was a great supporter and my mentor. So I told him, can you develop a kind of a form for me? What kind of questions I should ask? So he immediately, developed what you call the form for me, in which the first question I have to ask, not the name, I have to ask what is your deity? God. Second question, he said, ask him that how do I earn my living? Do I have a land or no land? So these were interesting questions actually, which I would fill up in these 2,000-3,000 forms which we filled. While doing that, actually, we realized that we were collecting less material on performance. We were collecting more material on a sociology of arts, actually, by knowing that how much they earn, what is their God, how do they, do their marriages, how do they, all kinds of social questions. While doing that, actually, that we realized that we should, whichever village we went to, sometimes a panwala in that village or a chai wala in that village would tell us, do you want to only meet acrobats? We'll say, no, is there something else also? He'll say, there's a small akhada here, go and see that. What were these akhadas? These were what you call traditional local gyms created by the villagers, what you call a now gymnasium. So we started collecting those also. Then the bazigars, then the hawkers and everything we started identifying and collecting material. Then one day we decided, look, can we bring them together at least to see what they, in one go. So in '84, we talked to some acrobats and these bazigars that can we meet in Ujjain for some time, so that we thought we'll document them and talk to them in detail. So it's very strange thing happened. We thought around 30 or 40 people will come. Instead, 300 people turned up. And the problem was because those days, wherever acrobats went, they would inform another acrobat saying, look, there's something happening in another town, you also reach there. So this tradition of, going from a mela to mela, they thought this was one of the melas where we should go. So our problem was now how to look after them, because we had only 20,000 rupees with us for 30 people to cook for them, to arrange, place for them to stay. Anyway, ultimately, it was the town which came to our rescue in Ujjain. Ujjain being a religious town, it has a lot of dharmshalas in it, and local people help you a lot. So we would go in the evening after finishing this whole workshop at around 5:30, watching what their exercises, training systems. And from 5:30 onwards, we'll go and collect from the shopkeepers rice, dal, and all that. And all of us will cook also for these 300 people. Not very simple food. But then this was another training. So it's a training within a training, which we never realized that will ultimately end up becoming good chefs also and cooks also, which to me is actually a performance. So like that, the 300 people were documented. Then this was one workshop which gave us a lot of material. And when we came back to Bhopal, we said, let's first create a kind of a gymnasium. So we call it Rang Khelwa. The idea was basically that actors have a different gymnasium than the sportsmen have. So we should create our own gymnasium, and the gymnasium which has an element of flexibility in it. Because in these traditional gyms, there was something very interesting was the ropes which they were using. So these ropes would help us actually to make bodies much more flexible. From there, then G. Shankar Pillai told me, he says, look, since you are doing it, why don't you visit Tellicherry? So I went to Tellicherry, and Tellicherry being a place of those, it's talking about 30 years ago. Tellicherry was a different place, while all these circus people had offices, and met some of these people and saw some of their training and all that. They even brought some of those one or two people to come and work with us. This was around 30 years ago, right? Now the same way, then came this idea of a laugh actually. We said, okay, now we are developing training for this actor. Another problem which we are facing, look, I'm not very linear in my talking because I have never been a linear. So I'll break the stories and bring you another story. So I'm like my way of talking is like a tree actually, that you look at a branch and suddenly there's another branch. And then I'll start talking about that branch. So I call it, my talking is like a tree. Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. We are,
Okay.
we are listening.
Then we thought that now this element of laugh, which had suddenly, taken these seeds into our mind, so how to do it. Since I, again, back to Kashmir, you will say that I always go back. Because as a child, probably I used to see a lot of these performers coming into our houses, which were not very highly codified forms. They were uncodified comic forms, which would travel from place to place. And, so I had this, what you call, impression of these forms. So I thought that, look, it would be easier to bring in these, these actors who do this element of clowning together at one place. So I wrote to some of my friends. I said, can you send me a actor who does clown, who does not clown actually, who does the comic role in a particular theatre form. Like in say Terukutu, you have a Komali, or in Tamasha, you have a Songadaya. Like that, I call these actors who for last their whole of for 40 years, 50 years, they have been doing the same role. If there's a one actor who has been doing Songadaya, has been doing Songadaya for years. So all these people came from Kashmir, from Punjab, from UP, from Tamil Nadu, from like 50 of them were together in Bhopal. Now most of them didn't know each other, neither they knew each other's language. So there was this big hall where they sat. We were sitting together, and all of them looking very different. The faces look so comic because they have been doing the same role for 50 years. So that comic has, what do you call in Hindi? It got fixed onto their faces like a mask actually, because they have been making faces. Therefore, it got stuck onto their faces. Now they were like these, these looking at each other, wanting to tell each other, look, I'm much greater than you are. But yet they can't talk to each other. So we had somebody interpreter. I had some friends also from Chennai with me. So I told them, well, you can talk to them, some people who are from our south of India. So we told them, let's start something. So one of the actors from March, who is known as the Shermar Khan, he got up and started doing something, and the other actor joined him. Like that, these actors kept on joining with them, as if, there was some kind of a competition. So you could see that without knowing each other and without knowing each other's language, they created a language of a different kind of a language, we were in fits actually. It was, it was full of actually great comic and laugh and whatnot. And each of them bringing and using only their gestures. Like I remember how it started. This man from Ujjain, this March actor, he came into the center of the space and he used his finger and started doing this. So this is how he started. And then I remember another fellow getting here from Terukutu, and he came from another side. He started doing this. He was doing up in the sky, and this fellow started doing down onto the floor. So like that, it became an enactment of fingers for some time. Then suddenly from a finger, they went to the hand. Like that, then it became the whole hand. Ultimately, and it ended up using their whole body and creating different kind of things. It was watching these, what you call installations actually, human installations. And therefore, if I have photographed them, like if you see each photograph looks like a human installation, which was, created by these performers. So that became our protagonist. So therefore, this laugh became protagonist. So I said, well, this is our protagonist, around which we have to develop a training. Around which we have to develop this whole, what you call the repertoire, and around which we have to create this our own idea of a performers and actors space. Now there was a problem. Problem was the actors who come and work with us in urban towns, particularly in the smaller towns. You see, India lives in three spaces. One is a highly urbanized India. One is a Mufassal India, which is called middle of India. And then there's another India which lives in villages. And now we are 4 Indias actually. There's a village India, then there's a tribal India, then there is a between the Mufassal India and what you call the semi-urban India. Now the actors who came to work with us were all these Mufassal India actors whose bodies have been fixed actually, because by the time they would come and work with us, they would be in the age group of 18 to 20. By that time, everybody's body is fixed, intellect is fixed, speech is fixed, everything is fixed. So we had to the first exercise we had to develop was to redo what they know. Break, actually like breaking space actually. You see, you can create a new space by breaking the original space actually. Then only you can create new space. So the moment we told them to start jumping around or do acrobatics, they felt scared. They said, because their bodies were fixed, they thought that if we jump or we do a somersault, they might get a fracture. And half of them started saying, no, we have not come here to do this. Because their idea of theatre was, to speak few lines and do a theatre. Now this was challenging for us. So that's where again the circus came to my rescue. Because I had seen the circus performers training their people, because they would they would just fix a net under below and then make them these, fly on those ropes so that the performer doesn't feel that if he falls down, he's going to break his neck. Because even if he falls, he's going to fall on the net. Therefore, so net is actually will look after you, So it's like a lap actually. It's like mother's lap. If a child falls, so she can hold you in the lap. Therefore, the net became the lab for actors. So we created a net structure in the room, and I said, now you can start doing exercises. Even if sometimes they will fall down, the flexibility of net will make their body to do exercises. You see, after all, when you fall on a net, you don't fall straight. You are going to fall, in a different way. So therefore, we said, okay, now if he's not wanting to do exercises, let's create certain props. While using that props, he won't know when he's doing exercises. So like for hand exercises, we created what we call it Junjuna. We had a big piece of bamboo in which we added certain gungrus and certain balls. And I said, okay, let's play with these balls. Like you have in some some what you call street forms. And while doing that, for them it was a fun, but not realizing actually they were doing exercises. So like that, lots of props were created. So we created these props to make them to do exercises. Now we'll say, why did you get this idea to use props to do them the exercises? This is what we got from the occupations actually. If you look at the whole India, each occupation makes you to do the exercises. If he's a fisherman, the moment he pulls the net out, actually, he is actually exercising his whole body also. Therefore, it is the occupation which is making your body to do exercises. Only thing I thought that let's not use these occupational, what you call, use occupational props for actors to do exercises. But here, you are doing it knowingly, therefore you knew what you are doing it. The same way we created some exercises, we say that let's go and watch how a tribal runs in a forest. Because we saw that when tribals are in a thick forest when they run, there are a lot of trees which are close to each other. They run and they do this zigzag, they run without even touching a tree. So therefore the whole body, involuntary muscles actually start working for his body. And actor actually uses a lot of involuntary muscles. So we created these exercises which we called it a forest. Then like that we created an exercise out of a tree root. We said that if roots can get alive and start mingling with each other, can it become exercise? So therefore idea was basically to imbibe the quality of a root into your body. So that ultimately your body becomes flexible, it becomes like a root. The same thing was when you are doing exercise with a rope. So actually you are imbibing rope. It's like drinking water. So it's like drinking a rope, actually, so that that rope actually starts working in your body and you start using your body. So these were the kind of training systems we developed from the childhood or the occupation or from these trends, what I call non-theater forms. Another thing was that how to look at color and design. That was something which we thought we must really look into it. Since I was not looking at what you call codified theater forms, so I was lucky I did. I think that was a great decision I took because I started looking at life in itself, which became a great training for me. Then looking at Kathakali or classical forms or taking training. So I thought that life would be a greater trainer for me. So again, how I did it now, this color, use of colors, was talking again to a weaver, because I used to do a lot of projects, those days, where I do these small melas and all, design spaces, make these craftsmen to sit and sell their goods. These are the small assignments I used to do. So many times I asked many weavers, I said, how is that you change every time you make a sari, it's very of a different color, it's of different design. How do you get so much great sense of this color? And again, a very simple answer. He said, very simple. I said, what simple? Again, I kept on repeating myself, what is simple? This one of the fellows told me, he said, look, we don't have a toilet at home. We go and sit in the open, and while sitting in the open, there are a lot of butterflies which come there and sit on these bushes. So I keep on, while, I'm doing my job, I keep on looking at these butterflies. So therefore, the color of those, I see the combination of these butterflies and I see the kind of different colors they use. So I use those very things in my, in weaving. So I thought it was very good, which means that I didn't want actors to go in the open to see butterflies. Otherwise you would have created another, and even nowadays you can't do it much more than because you'll be imprisoned. But then, I had to discuss these issues with them and tell them to boss, keep on, let's start looking at the nature and see if we can. So each of them, we started borrowing these whole color schemes from the nature, from the butterflies, which became ultimately the colors for our face. So everybody's face became a butterfly face. So we call it actually comic faces. That's why. Therefore, you see, we have a problem. We don't have a fixed makeup. If you see one of our productions where we have done few hundred shows of a particular play, if you see 10 times, you will see 10 different makeups by the same actor, because we have kept this flexibility not to codify him, that this makeup is for this character, this makeup is for this character. The idea was actually even the ordinary human beings keep on changing every day. They keep on changing with the life, with the politics which is going around them. Therefore, the color changes. So why should not actor's face change every day? Therefore, let him experiment with his face every day. So therefore, if we had a sense that time, if we had photographed each performance with different makeups, maybe I would have at least 50,000 images with me of different makeups, which we never did it. But then, anyway, that was another way of looking at it. But again, it was basically now why we were doing it, every day changing our color, changing makeup in each performance. Idea was basically to look at your face also as a space. As a painter would look at its own canvas. That after all, if you give an empty canvas to a painter, he will paint it differently every day, therefore that becomes his space. Therefore, actor uses his body as a space, his face as a space on which he can paint and do his experiments whichever way. Whatever is the temperament of that day he has, or whatever mood he has. So he or she would paint face as he or she would. Sometimes I also sit with them. I say, when I want to paint your face, they'll say, no, why don't you paint your face? I would always tell them, no, I'm a director. I should paint your face, which was only a trick because I also painted. Since I had stopped painting, so I thought, why not to paint actors' faces, to fulfill my frustration of painting, not painting canvas. So so it was my frustration where I would, tell my actor fellows, boss, can I paint your face? So that gave another flexibility of, using face as a space. The same way, it was with, like I told you, other things, gestures, faces, everything. That's what I said, that I took this topic that actor and space in relationship to his body, environment, his face, his gestures. And the another thing I must tell you, very interestingly, I was interested always in sports as a child also. So I thought, and this was always in my brain, that performance is ultimately a sports event. It's not a theatrical event. To me, my performance is like a small sports event. The actors have to look like sportsmen. And they are like sportsmen, they're jumping around. Therefore, it's like a football match actually, where they trust each other, they know who's going to do what. So therefore, this element of sports is very important for me in my productions and in training. So we got actually, it was while working with these acrobats, there was this, Sports Authority of India. There was one gentleman called, who was those days the chairman of Sports Authority of India. He was a retired army man. I knew him. I once went to him. I said, look, why don't we take acrobats and train them as gymnasts? And, maybe we'll do better as a gymnast. He said, okay, why don't you collect some of them? Before doing that, they had suddenly a new profession had started in Indian sports of these what you call medical sports. It was not there. Medical sports had become a very important subject in the sports. So there was one doctor called Dr. Sarangapani who had done his specialization in medical sports from somewhere in Germany, and he was with them. So this General Narendra Singh, he told me, who was the chairman, he says, why don't you take him with you to test these children whether they are good, to be, whether they can be taken as a gymnast and they can be trained. So while doing that, this Dr. Sarangapani, the way he would test these children, because there are certain things which a sportsman needs. It was actually how you use muscles and how they use their breathing system, whether certain children can do it or not. So out of 100 children, he selected only 4, which he thought could be trained. But anyway, he selected 4 children. But these 4 children, the parents would say, no, we won't allow them to go, because those parents used to earn their living by performing in the streets, the child climbing on the rope, and then they will collect money. If the child goes, so they won't, they will have problem with their what you call the survival. So again, I went to General Narendra Singh. I said, this is the problem. He says, how much do they earn per day? Those days, it was 50 rupees or 100 rupees or something. He said, okay, we'll give them 500 rupees a month till their child is here. That's how these children came, and those days we used to have these Romanian gymnasts training our gymnasts here in India. It was under certain cultural activity. They trained these 4 children actually, and they broke all actually records actually in 6 months. But again, then ultimately they went back and nobody, in fact, brought back these children, to be our gymnasts, excepting some archers were brought in from the tribals who again broke some records. So we don't have habit of taking these people, and making them into our sportsmen, because they come from very humble backgrounds. Because ultimately, if we had done that in this country, probably we would have greater sportsmen. Since I was not I thought that this is one, I thought this is one element which I need to bring into my productions. So I would I asked some of my doctor friends to come and analyze our exercises. But, sometimes we tend to do exercises which go against our structure of our body. So they would help us. And then there's another area which helped me a lot. was the local processional forms actually, which happens in North India, which happens anywhere else in the world. And these processional forms, where they play these akhadas and then ultimately one day I realized what these akhadas do in processional form. This is exactly in a much superior way the Kalri people do. Because ultimately there's a lot of commonality in it, whether it's Kalri, whether it's Thanka, whether it's Gatka from Punjab or akhadas from North India. So they have a lot in commonality. So these street forms also gave us a structure actually to our plays and this energy to our performances. And we started bringing in actually sports trainers to our group to come and work with us. Another area which helped us a lot was we had a gentleman. Again, this man was suggested to us by, are you sleeping? Yeah, I thought you were feeling. Look, I'm not singing a lullaby to you. I'll do that later on. And another area which helped us was these actually, these people who do this in films, they have these fighters, actually, these fight sequences. In Chennai, they have these lot of slums where these people do these fight competitions, They have smaller groups actually where they do these fight sequences and they see which is the best group. So I had asked that I need a person like him, somebody like them to come and work with my actors. So it was N. Muthuswamy from Chennai who runs the Kutupatrai. So he suggested me a person called Bhubalan, who I have not met for many years. So he would come every year and be with the actors, wake them at 5 in the morning, and do all those fight sequences with them, which you find actually in cinema. And those fight sequences became very interesting actually to work with the body. And that element of sports, how to use actually the flexibility of the body, how to use reflexes, how to depend on each other. And therefore that came the element of sports came into my performances. Therefore, I see my performance as a performance performed by sports actors. I call them sports actors. So they are sports actors and they can be, they have to be of a certain age. And like at my age, they can't do it. Therefore, they have to be a certain age, and therefore the sports actor has to become part of me. So this is my history, and we can go for hours and to share experiences with you. Now, I think if you have any questions, I could answer them. Thank you.
It was nice, Bansi, to hear how you developed your kind of repertoire of acting. See, after whole training from National School of Drama, that too in that period means you came out, I think, in 1970, early part of 1970s. So, and then it was Alkasi who was training you, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, the problem is that those days, drama school was more like a theatre group than a training school. Because it was a small institute where we had 2-3 teachers who would teach us till 1 o'clock. And then Alkazi Saab would do productions with us. And all 3 years will come together to do a production. And drama school had taken all its training from somewhere because Alkazi Saab himself was trained from RADA. And so it was that training system actually which was brought into the drama school. And most of the actors who came to drama school came from a different backgrounds. Sometimes it suited them and sometimes it did not suit them. It's like that you had brought a suit, overcoat from somewhere and you wanted to fit that overcoat onto the bodies which were from the Indian soil. So sometimes these actors look so awkward. But that's the kind of, there's nothing wrong if we were taking something from the other parts of the world. And some of us, who went out the moment we finished our drama school, we were forced into the field actually, because there was nothing actually in the way. There were no assignments or we didn't know how to survive. So we decided actually, I don't know how it happened. Some of us, it happened that we became like what we call barefoot doctors in theater. So all of us started traveling, without knowing where we are going. We would reach some town and be with somebody, because one thing we knew, that we are Indians. Wherever you go, somebody is going to give you food. This is the only thing we knew, and we still know. And now we know it's not true after seeing these laborers going back to their homes, that even we don't even have food also. But that's the change which has happened from that time to this time. So we would reach these smaller towns, talk to local theatre people, and work with them, and sometimes do whatever we had learned, use that training. But that training would change every time, because we were working with these local amateur actors who had their own training systems, their own body systems. So it is their own body systems which kept on changing our own systems. Sometimes, it's like the people who you are working with. They tell you what to do with their bodies. It is they who tell you to uh, please look at my body differently. It's like a patient telling doctor how to look at a disease, actually, because the kind of disease he or she has. So therefore, it was a traveling and meeting all kinds of people and looking back into your own homes and streets, and looking at what you call non-theatre forms, that it supported our different kind of training. Because North had a very interesting thing, because we don't have many art forms which are highly codified. Because maybe it did not happen in the North India for the reasons of invasions and whatever, because they were border states. So there was no definite what you call highly codified system. One way it was helpful, because if we had a codified system, we would have got trapped into it. Therefore, sometimes it's better that you don't have it. Therefore, you are trying to create a system with what you call uncodified forms. And that is true with the highly codified forms. Even highly codified forms also have developed from what you call the uncodified forms, the material. Therefore, there was so much material around. If you look in the history of highly codified forms, you'll find that they also have developed from uncodified forms. If that has happened to these highly codified forms, why can't it happen to a theatre? So therefore, that was one thing which might help us. Two, because there was a lot of feudalism actually in whole of North India, the only art forms which survived in theatre, what I call the secular theatre forms, which were the theatre forms of actually laugh, theatre forms of actually comic, because comic was never understood by the what you call the rajas, the kings. They thought it was comic, but never realized that it was not comic. It was some kind of a satire. Or some of them wanted to have it because they thought it was a private satire, or they are being privately told what is wrong with him. So from Kashmir to rest of the country, you had these. From Bandapathar to Punjab, you had these nakals, barupias, then bopas in Rajasthan. Then you had all theatre forms which had this element of laugh in it. So it was that actually which attracted, at least me, it attracted me a lot, and which gave me a lot of material to work on. And so I would say I was lucky actually to have traveled and decided to travel. Probably sometimes, as we know, when you don't have anything, you create something actually. If you have a lot to do, if you have a lot of facilities, you don't create anything. It's like it's like our childhood. Some of us who never got great toys to play with. So it was the nature who gave us the toys actually. Therefore we played with the toys which were seasonal toys. So we created our own toys. So that helped us actually. I'm not saying that some children who have these facilities should not have it. I'm not envy of that. I'm saying that we went through this. That was our process of looking at things. So it was our childhood, our own way of looking at things. Even there was a time when I wanted to develop a toy museum in this country. This toy museum, actually living toy museum, which I still do ultimately before I leave theatre, that where all, each toy has a story about it, and toy is a protagonist also in Indian literature. And toy making is something which uses a different sense actually. That I thought that I should have a center where children can come and as a tourist be there for a month, and you introduce them to different toys of this, how toys were made. For instance, every toy, because if you look at the history of Indian toy, there's a toys which are related to environment, there's toys related to seasons, there are toys related to rituals, there are toys related to religion. For that matter, there's toys related to literature also. If you take play like Mrchikatika, imagine if you remove the clay cart from the play, you can't run that play. Therefore, clay cart in itself is a protagonist. Therefore, it was this idea that humans are not always protagonists. It's sometimes other things which are protagonists in the play. The toy is the protagonist of a Mrchikatika. If I remove toy from the play, or if you remove the ring from Shakuntalam, there is the ring which is the protagonist of the play, not the Shakuntala, not the Dushan. Therefore, it's a way of looking at things. That's what is clown in me. Look at things topsy-turvy. Don't look at things, the way you have been told to look at. Therefore, you need to look at the world differently. The same way, actually, now today, if I ask you which is the protagonist today in this world, COVID-19 is the protagonist which you can't see. So is it global? Therefore, there is something, you have to find your new protagonist also. Because we have been told that it's only humans who are protagonists. If we were told that wind is the protagonist, now look at that. I'll give you an example of a great play called Riders to the Sea by G.M. Singe, if you remember, all of you. Riders to the Sea. Now there actually it is the sea, the ocean, which is the protagonist in the play. Other characters are just there, Therefore, how to make nature as a part of your, play, that he or she becomes the protagonist. You have to find these protagonists. So therefore, I say, the day you find a new protagonist in your theater, you will find a new training system. The day you find a new protagonist in your theater, you will find a new, what you call, space for actor. Thank you.
So what fascinated me from your talk today is that after the whole training Institute of India, that too with the great trainer Alkazi and all the disciplines he has been acting training, you came out and you just started looking to the clowns or the street circus people or the life of people to create a vocabulary of actor training. Then the whole things you studied in that so-called means our routine theater training. So you have
all of us it happens actually. You have a more training outside if you want to. And you have a training from the people. I say the occupations are the biggest training. I am not denying what you learn from there.
Yes.
That's a scientific way of looking at things. So I'm not saying that we deny what we learn, but we need to open our minds. For me, clown is no more a clown. For me, laughter is everything now. Therefore, to begin with, I was looking at the world from clown's point of view. So tomorrow I might look at the world from what you call a peasant's point of view, how peasant would look at the world, or our scientists will look at the world. So we need to do that we have to find different points of views. If there's an engineer has a certain way of looking at the world. So it's that we need. The moment we do that, so you will find different systems, Otherwise, when we say that the time is coming where people will be programmed, I say we are already being programmed.
Yes.
So we are a programmed children actually, without knowing that we are programmed so much that our theater is being programmed. Our text is being programmed. Even actor is programmed through a text. Therefore, the actor has to first attack this, of being programmed. Therefore, he has to break himself from the shackles of these, where he is being programmed. And so all of us actually, and it can happen to us only when we look around. And sometimes, we are also blind. We are sometimes like horses, with those, what do you call it? You have blinkers on. But then, that's how it is.
That's one thing. Another thing which I would like to put up is that, as you said, there's a lot of physicality about your theater. Yes, it's there. The clowning, climbing up, jumping, running, stopping, all these very fascinating movements. But at the same time, you use a lot of lines also. They speak a lot also. So how do you combine this thing? And also, along with that, see, even if you're taking a very serious, means a character like Kabir, and I remember the death of Kabir with that lotus and all those means of flowers, that zine. So how do you convert a very serious moment to a sort of clowning, and how could you uh, create a narrative to suit the clowning and the physicality, still keeping your lines and I say enriched with a lot of Urdu poetry even.
The problem is that how we look at a clown itself.
Yeah.
Because we have always thought that we have been programmed to look at a clown, as a buffoon. But buffoon is a serious entity. We have never looked at it, that he is much more serious than anybody else. That we have never looked at that he also can be a sad person, that he also thinks. But we have been programmed in such a way where the idea of clown means jumping around. Therefore, if you look at the whole world, in fact, some of the greatest Sufis of the world were all clowns in a different way. When I use the word clown, I am not using the word clown as a buffoon. I can say even somebody who breaks new, who is wanting to create a new road, or who wants to who wants to create new rules and break old rules, is a clown. Only clown can do it. For me, even when Gandhiji was doing something, wanting to do something new, to me, he's a clown actually, not in a sense of a buffoon, but he thinks very differently because he's intellectually very different. So to me, all great people who have thought differently, who have created a different path, are actually the clowns, not in a sense of somebody from a circus. Then when you say physicality, is not possible without being a calm actually. In my production, there is a kind of a marriage between a physicality and the calmness, that you have to be calm to be physical. And this calmness comes to you actually from being looking into the space which is not a very external, which is an internal space within the actors. That's why I say that my production is a marriage between a Buddhist monk and an acrobat. There's a calmness and the acrobatics together. You can't do acrobatics unless you are very calm. It's not possible because you have to look at the 100-meter or 800-meter race. All of us, when we watch sports, the sportsman is so calm, so reserved. Before he takes a run, he takes a leap. It is that calmness actually which you don't see on stage. It is calmness which is a private to a performer. So he or she keeps this calmness. Without calmness, he can't be physical. It is this calmness, because that's why sometimes people criticize me, oh, my theatre is very physical. It's not physical. I think it's a very calm theatre. There's a lot of calmness in it. Now, for instance, these Shaolin monks who do a lot of martial arts. They can't do it unless they are very calm. Therefore, everything, clown is the coolest person on earth. Laugh is the coolest calmness on earth, actually. Therefore, is there that relation? The bird who comes and makes these drawings on the snow is very calm before he runs. If you watch it, bird comes and stands there for some time before he takes a leap. It's like a sportsman before they run. It's that calmness actually which actually brings in the idea of an inner space. Otherwise, it won't be possible.
And what about the spoken language and the inclusion of the speech into this physicality or calmness, whatever is it?
That's why most of the exercises which we do, we'll do with the physical exercises, we'll do our speech exercises also together. We won't separate them for simple reason. After all, when I'm talking to you, I'm using your physicality also. Because most Indians have a habit, particularly our dialects, the languages, you cannot talk without using your hands. It is basically when we talk to each other. This is what actually the British, now we have become foreigners, where we have been told to not to use your hands while you're talking, because that's part of our etiquettes. But Indian etiquettes are that you talk to each other like this, start throwing, arms, go to the streets. It is actually this physicality which is controlling your, what you call breathing. And it's that breathing actually which creates a variation in our speech. After all, what do you do? After all, if you see two people fighting in the street, when they jump each other, they are abusing also each other. In fact, that abusing is a speech. And then that abusing is a speech, and then it becomes so, what you call, different. And there's a lot of variation in those abuses. That variation happens because of the physicality and the physicality which is created through breathing. Ultimately, nothing is possible. No physicality is possible without using your lungs and breathing. If I am telling you, oh, you this stupid, this, oh, no, you're so there is a variation in speech. So there is no, when people say no, it's a separate training. It's not. Physicality and speech have to go together. That's why we say that there should be a voice training. That voice training is part of a physical training. And it is this voice training which makes ultimately your speech more, where you bring in the idea of variations. Maybe sometimes when you are calm, then you start talking about diction and other things. That's why I say the marriage between calmness and the physicality.
So one thing which you right now may be important for the young actors who are trying to come up, voice is an extension of the physicality. It's the same thing, the voice and the physicality, which actually somebody has asked me to have a session on voice and the speech in theater that we'll do later. So a lot of people hearing it, people who are senior production, senior theater, reactive theater people are there, young students are there. They'll be inquisitive. They'll be anxious to ask doubts or questions or clarifications. So everybody is welcome to just unmute your mic and ask back. We can have some more time with Bansi ji. So please feel free to come and react and respond to what Bansi was speaking about till now. It would be great if you could limit your queries within the topic he talked, but you can very slightly deviate, and he can answer if he like. So welcome.
Hello.
Yes, Manik, go on.
Yeah. Hi, sir. So Bansi sir, thank you so much. That was really helpful and very very easy to understand the way you explain things. So I just wanted to ask us, like we were talking about the flexibility of the body, right? So is it possible for everyone to gain that flexibility of the body? I mean the age limit. Even is it possible for the kids also to gain that flexibility? Because my son is 10 years old. He's almost like a clown in the house. He jumps around, he makes noises, he tries to comfort his younger ones, makes them laugh, makes us laugh all the time. So I was just wondering, like, if he could practice it seriously, would it help him in future? So I just wanted to know, like, is it possible for kids?
Now let him because he's he's living in a COVID-19 time. So let him at least have fun. At least he's bringing element of laugh into the house, which is great. And then maybe at some stage, probably he could train himself, put his flexibility, which is which is uncontrolled, and maybe put into some kind of a discipline, which will help him actually. But then you see, children are always like that. Much more than children is the mothers actually. I'll tell you, in fact, it's the mothers actually who are the greatest clowns on earth.
Exactly.
Because mothers, when they look after their children, the kind of faces they make their children, try to teach them and talk to them. Because our child is not born with a speech, he's only born with a sound. Then I have seen like all of his mothers, do all kinds of to the child, funny sounds they make, they laugh at with him. So in fact, they are not professional clowns. Actually, they are actually the natural clowns in the house. So all our mothers have done clowning to all of us, and a clowning with a calmness. Therefore, I think you should continue with doing that as a mother.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Bansi sir, because I found it very insightful. One of the things that I have noticed in this context is that very often we have a lot of these guest workers all over the South. And I've noticed that these guest workers who come from the hill areas, even if they're walking on a broad road, they walk in single file. Because in the hills, they are used to walking on narrow tracks. Similarly, people who come from forest areas, they again walk in a narrow line, and they have this habit of constantly looking down as well as up to see whether there are any snakes or, so those kind of patterns, even in a city, I find they tend to follow those patterns. So I found this concept of childhood patterns working on the actor's physicality and space. I think it's very interesting and relevant. Thank you very much.
No, you're right actually. When you say, for instance, India is an amazing country because it probably is the only country, there might be other countries, which has so many landscapes actually.
Yeah.
Somebody comes from a hillscape, somebody comes from a desert scape, somebody comes from an ocean scape. So if you look at your landscape, there are so many. And it is basically the geographical landscape which has defined his body, speech and all that. Now if you take the dances of hills or Himalayas, they are not very fast dances. That's because there's less oxygen in that area.
Yes.
It's because of that less oxygen, it has controlled his movement actually. So they can't jump around because the oxygen has its own limitation, When you come to plain areas, you see the dancer jumping around. Now if you ask same dancer to go and dance the same way in Ladakh, he or she won't be able to do it. Because ultimately the nature actually and the amount of oxygen which is available in different landscapes, which defines your body. And we tend to overdo with our bodies, That's why when you bring an actor from a hillscape to a plains, so it will take you time to bring him, You might use some of his techniques, but to make his body to react to this new landscape takes time. It's not only the mental makeup, we say that whenever we talk about can somebody who has lived in a village, can he go and adjust in a town? We ask always this question, can this child adjust in that public school? It's basically the geographical situation we are talking about. Not only the kind of community he or she has lived with. We always say food habit is a part of a certain natural habit.
Yeah.
So that's why we say that all cultures are not related to. There's always actually in folklore they say there is a wheat culture, there's a rice culture, there's a paddy culture. Therefore, it is that paddy which defines our culture of a particular area. Rice defines a particular culture of a particular area. Now, unfortunately, all cultures have become the same. But then traditionally it was that. It was actually how you were showing actually that they created your body postures. After all, when even a realistic theatre also, when you start analyzing a play, you want to see that what is the geographical background of that character. Don't you do that? That's how you analyze.
Yeah.
You say that what is his economical background, what is his social background when you are analyzing your character. When you are saying what is his geographical background, actually you are talking about his physicality also. We tend to forget that time that certain geography has created a certain physicality in him. So therefore, our simplify it. No, he came from, he's from Tanjore or he's from so and so place. But then not realizing the physicality of that area has a lot to do with his mindset also.
Right.
So we need to do that also. Therefore, nature, the environment, and the area and the topography, there's a lot of, which is part of our actually, has to be part of our analyzing a character. Yes.
Mohan, unmute your mic. I cannot hear you. Unmute your mic before you talk.
Oh.
Ah, you're right.
I have noticed in your plays that your actor enacts at two levels.
Other three
One level is that he's acting as Vidushak or as clown, and that clown is enacting the character. So, what's your view? Am I right that he's acting on two levels?
Physically in a speed, he performs at three spaces. I think ground, mid-air, and sky. But then otherwise also, any character is always has to play the multiple levels. For instance, actually, when I say that every time my friends ask me, why do you want to hide their faces? I say that is the sthai bhav of a character actually, which is constantly there actually. The sthai bhav has to be constantly there to remind the audience what it is. And therefore, clown actually plays multiple roles. Therefore, he's not playing at one role, he's playing what you call avastha. For that matter, in any kind of theatre, whether you do realistic theatre, stylized theatre, any kind of theatre actors ultimately play so many avasthas. It's not a one avastha he is in. He has to be in many more avasthas. In which there is a one predominant avastha. It's like that when he enters into the space, he's in a one avastha. Then he goes out, he's in a different avastha. It's like saying that like the Shivites in Kashmir, they say that when you go through like your childhood, then adulthood, then you become old. These are your avasthas. Which means that when you complete all these avasthas, then you go to the vanaprastha, right? Now, actor also goes these four avasthas. Therefore, one avastha is not related to another. Each avastha is complete in itself. The moment he enters into the performing space, he has completed one avastha and he has taken an exit. Therefore, when he takes a second entry, to me it is a second avastha, which has nothing to do with the first avastha. Every time he is getting into the new role, every time he is getting into the new avastha. Therefore, he doesn't have to feel so guilty that whether he was good, bad, or in first avastha. So therefore, he plays these avasthas actually. And we as human beings also do it. Actors do it much more because otherwise he can't. Because if he doesn't use these multiple avasthas on a performance space, it will be very difficult for him to relate to the audiences. Because audiences also has to relate to him.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Tell me.
Yeah.
Bansi sir, I have a question. So like in particular language itself, there are slangs that would help to generate like comedy elements. So what's your opinion about using it intentionally to generate like I would say like comedy or clowning?
No, you see, first thing I must tell you that I'm using clown in a different way. I'm not only doing comedies. That's what I want to make sure, first thing. Therefore, when I say that I'm using laugh as a protagonist, as an element of protest, and laugh representing a common man actually. In fact, laugh is a proletariat actually in that sense. Therefore, for me, it is that actually. But slang actually, yes, these small things do help. Particularly in dialects actually. When I work in small towns, the idea of working in small towns was because each dialect has an element of slang in it actually. And the way it is said, it's only in, that slang actually which creates a different kind of a language actually for actor. That's why I sometimes say that all actors should practice abuses. They should sit with each other and start abusing each other. We used to do it actually when we were young. We would sit in a room and abuse each other, then do the competition whose abuse was the best. Then we'll say, let's weight the abuse. So my abuse was 12-ton abuse, and somebody's abuse was only 5-ton or 3-ton. So therefore, I think these are certain things which we need to do actually to feel better. Yes, Murali. Yeah.
Anybody else? Srinivas was about to ask something little 2 minutes before.
What is that?
Hello.
Yes, Srinivas, how are you?
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, this friend of mine has woken up from the sleep.
Can you hear?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Come on.
Okay. Sir, my question is, suppose we have a lot of ritual performances in India.
Yeah.
So how do you, make use of these ritual practices, ritual dances, ritual performances into the theater?
And I will have to add something to this. So can you just say a little more elaborate on the Panther, which is actually performed by, as I understand, by the Muslims about Hindu stories, and the amount of laughter or all those things in it, and how you have extracted anything from it into the performance repertoire of your theater.
From where?
From the Panther.
No, I didn't get you. Please, can you ask me again?
Yeah, from the Panther of Assam. Sorry, Kashmir.
Yeah, there are actually. For instance, I have these lot of stories which indirectly come into my performances. Particularly the stories of these what you call the stories from my childhood stories, which I do bring actually as into my performances. Even the biggest story to me nowadays from Kashmir in my theatre is actually a story of a displacement. Because how people get displaced in this country, which is a lot to do with me personally, as well as with the others, because after all, there are all kinds of, if we were not displaced for whatever reason from a particular place, for whatever reasons, it would have not got into my head that ultimately we are a country where people are displaced either forcibly, either by circumstances, and therefore this displacement has to come into as an act of content into my place. Now I see this displacement as not only as a content, but I see it as actually element of philosophy with actors also. Because to me, sometimes actor's profession is a profession of displacement. Now you will say how? Because actor displaces himself every day from one role to another. He displaces himself from himself actually. So therefore I say that actor is a profession of displacement. And therefore it is this displacement actually which makes him to do different things. Because he constantly is displaced from his own self. And then he gets back again into himself, again displaces himself. Now to Jayarajan's question, that we don't use rituals as it is, into theatre. But ultimately theatre in a way becomes a ritual in itself. When you keep on, because ultimately what is a ritual? Ritual is something which to me is something, some theory which has now stagnated at some place. And then with the times it keeps on changing, it keeps on adding elements of theatre into it. So theatre in itself, it's a ritual actually, which keeps on changing, and therefore to bring in some, you might bring in the what you call the physical elements from certain rituals into your performances, or you can use them as devices. Just to give you an example, there was this play which we had done, Kiradam, G. Shankar Pillai's play, if you remember, all of you. And this we had done actually in Gandhigram Rural University. And there is this one sequence in the play where a woman is being raped. And now the problem was how to really perform this whole sequence.
Hello?
How to perform this sequence actually on the performance space. So we used actually what you call certain ritualistic performances, dances, where these people started actually dancing around this woman in different shapes, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, and picking up their pole into the air as if they were picking up their deities actually.
Deities, yeah.
Right, and then suddenly throwing it onto the ground as if they have made holes in the ground. The idea was to show that Mother Earth has been raped actually. And then suddenly all of them jump together around it, or it becomes a kind of a hollow piece of land. So that's what, because it was actually as a device which we were using. And sometimes, these devices come to you from watching the performances. Since Jayarajan knows is that since we do a lot of work together, we work with a lot of folk performers, tribal performers, do big shows, and naturally the elements from those shows will remain with you. They get imbibed into you. You see, there is this process of imbibing which is natural with all of us. I always say that there is a saying in English that rolling stone gathers no mass, but I say that actually rolling stone imbibes a mass. Because I see this as an example that when I as a child must have come out from hills, you came down into the plains. So I'm like a small pebble. While rolling down, I have rolled with me the wind. I have rolled with me the mud. I have rolled with me the snow on me. And when I reached plain areas with the heat, that mud disappeared into soil and the snow disappeared into water, and wind, there was a different wind, which means what has this pebble done? So this pebble has imbibed a lot of seasons. So this pebble has imbibed a lot of experiences from all over. So therefore I see as an imbibed pebble director, I call myself, who has imbibed from many places.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jayarajan, I didn't know that you have no hair. Oh, now I realize. I recognized you only from the mural behind you. I thought, I was saying, who am I talking to? Then I thought that, oh my God, I know this drawing, I know this house.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, Bansi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can see you, I can hear you.
Okay.
And I can feel you.
First thing is we are not sleepy, though we started very early.
Okay.
So
You see, you must understand that I work with clowns.
I know we look a bit like them. The first question is is there a way we can actually see some of your productions online? Can we see your productions online?
What is it?
Is there anything on YouTube or anything?
No, because you see, this is something which we never learned. Maybe now these things will tell us. There might be some place, but badly recorded.
Okay.
You see, there has been no, I mean, this is a problem with all of us, all Indian directors and actors. Because we were trained actually in, I don't know, a few centuries ago, not knowing that we should document ourselves. So we might be using text and writing letters to each other, but by temperament, we belong to oral traditions, where we have never learned that. Now, I think, like young people now, they know how to document. They keep on record of everything. So, probably we are, in a real sense, Indians. I'll tell you why. Because Indians have a habit of making a deity and then do a puja, then throw it into the river. So that you have a next deity. That's what happens in all pujas, everywhere. So therefore, we treat our performances like a mud god. So you make one thing, do a puja, then you take it and throw it into the water, so that you can make another god. So sometimes, people who document their work, they are documenting actually their only one god which they have made. So I'm only trying to justify myself, my stupidity by saying this, that yes, I have not documented much.
Okay, I have a second question, which when you spoke about the feudalistic society, what you have in north of India, for a Malayali, it's the first thing is oppression. So have you used your theater against oppression or against any sort of social changes?
I said in the beginning only, I said that to me, my theater, the laugh in itself is a protest. So laugh is a vocal protest. Therefore, I have picked up a protagonist who is always protesting. You see, to give you an example, after all, when something really terrible happens in this country, ask these mothers, when a child, she loses a child, she doesn't cry. Then we try to, hit her so that she can cry, come out with, that whatever pain she is. Sometimes we have found out that mothers laugh loudly. And it is that laugh actually which has a lot of pain in it. It is a laugh which has a protest in it. That's why I say that ultimately the only weapon, which is the poor man's weapon, is the laugh actually. And I always say that the only weapon which is left with us now, therefore, is the laugh. And now I am worried during COVID-19 is not about whether I am able to perform or not. My worry is that I should not be deprived of my laugh. I don't want to become a human being when I cannot laugh and when I cannot protest. That is the only worry I have. Otherwise, getting up, doing a street play, protesting, there are different ways of protesting. After all, we need to recognize the different protests also. Everybody has a way of, child has a way of protesting. But what has happened that we have been programmed in such a way where we have been told that this is how you protest. If you don't fit into that frame of protest, therefore you have not protested. The frames have been created. Therefore, we need to break these frames and tell people that everybody is protesting, and in a different way. That's why I found this laugh as the element of protest. So I thought, why not to use it?
And one more thing, I'm quite fascinated about your toy museum and puppet museum. And you said there's camps you organize for children, 1 month camp. Would like to get some more information about it. Maybe through the you can actually share it with Chandran sir or somebody.
Yeah, maybe we can have because I got a lot of my friends actually. This is the idea. I wrote this proposal. I've been wanting to do it. I had some ideas, but I have been discussing it with a lot of my friends that what else should happen to it. Will it ever happen? And will we get some space somewhere where we can say, will somebody be interested? Basically, idea was basically to not involve. I thought that ultimately in today's times, where things have changed. It is the child who is deciding the tourism for parents. It is the child, it's not the parents who are deciding, because I'm saying, the ones who can afford it. I'm not talking about the poor children. It's because after all, you go into it, you decide that we'll go out this year only when child has a vacation in the school. Now, when you go to vacations, you start showing him all kinds of things which probably he's not interested. So why can't there be a place everywhere where there is a space for this child, where he actually is he who is taking parents to that space, instead of parents taking him out. So he should be allowed to actually. I remember there was a sum. I don't know whether if I'm wrong or right. There was some in Poland, I believe, a group of children who had formed some kind of a committee. They used to award those people who have done a lot of work for children. And I think first award went to. You remember this? There is this toy in a dolls museum in Delhi, which is created by the cartoonist Mr. Pillai, was it?
Shankar.
Yeah, Shankara. I believe Mr. Shankara was invited once by this group of children to award him. And it is the children who received him on the airport. It's the children who took him to the hotel. So everything was done by them. That is the kind of a responsibility the children thought. So that's why I always thought that actually the time when if we could create such spaces, where they could sit, do things, play. And even I'm interested in that. Why maybe you could tell your government that if India has more than 700 to 800 districts, why can't India have a 700 to 800 parks created by children, which are actually, I don't call them toy parks, it could be the cultural spaces for children. Give them and they could create it, they could develop it, and all of us could help them. And maybe if a child, why I'm saying, this is not something which is my idea again. In Chhattisgarh, you see they have this toddy from the tree, which is in Kerala also. They have this toddy drinking, which happens. What's it called in Kerala? A tree is grown actually when a child is born. A mother plants a tree for the child so that when he gets older, he can have his own toddy. So as long as the child is the mother who looks after the tree. Then when he gets older, then he looks after his tree and waits for the food, which means it has done two things. He can't drink till he's adult, because he's only allowed to drink from his tree. Now what happened in last 20, 30 years, suddenly government started, taking over these trees as a part of that, collecting toddy as so that they can earn excise duty. All trees were snatched from the tribes. So few trees were left. And then they started fighting with each other. Now sometimes when you want to make a business out of people's choices, this is what happens. So these things actually you want to know. After all, all tribes had their own systems, their way of life, which has been, there's a lot of interference into it. Therefore, I see each theatre group as a tribe, Therefore, each theatre group becomes a small tribe, has its own values, has its own, ideas, has its own self-sufficient and independent. It would be great, but it's only, after all, it's very utopic actually. As an idealist, I think of this should happen. I don't know what all will happen, but there's nothing wrong in thinking. Let me try. Someday it might happen.
Thank you.
I think, Srinivas wanted to ask something, and also Prashant wanted to ask something. You can come forward. Unmute your mic and talk.
Sir, good afternoon. Are you hearing me?
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Sir, I'm Srinivas Penchanala from Hyderabad.
Anji, how are you?
Sir, fine, sir. Thank you, sir. Very nice speech, and I'm following you for last 10 to 15 years. I'm reading your interviews and I've seen some of your plays also. My question is about Ministry of Culture. Could you please suggest us how to tackle this Ministry of Culture? Their issues like they are stopping a renewal of liberty grants who are continuously working, and the 6,000 rupees is even not enough for an actor. There are many issues. They stopped individual production grants. Could you please suggest us anything as a senior director and director of a liberty company?
You see, even if I suggest something, they won't listen to me, number one. Because I'm nobody. Number two, you see, that's it, because ultimately they have nothing after ministry cultures. If you look at the total budget for such a big country, so small, that I was recently on one webinar with IG and CA where we were discussing actually the economics of arts. And I said, in fact, I found some data from different friends in which I said that I took Odisha, Bengal, Assam, and some parts of Kerala, that where you have these touring theatre companies, that Andhra, we have a lot of these touring theatre companies. So I found a data, there are around 700 these touring theatre companies. Now 700 companies, they perform every, whether it's a good theatre, bad theatre, I'm not interested in that. Each of them performs around 200 shows every year. Now if you say 700 into 200, it becomes how many thousand? Whatever. And each performance which they do, they generate 1 lakh of a rupee. Now, which means the amount of money which is generated by these voluntary, what I call self-employment. After when you generate a revenue, you are actually generating a revenue for the economy of the country. Therefore, you become part of GDP. Therefore, I was trying to tell them that like we contribute so much to the GDP. That time, what came to my mind was that only 56,000 crores. And if I ask you, all of you to, do this data details, you will find in Kerala how much money the performers generate. It could be from temples also because they want somebody sitting outside a temple or a drummer. Ultimately, even if he earns little money, but it becomes part of a certain economy in this country. Same way, there was a time when, after all, India does not export aeroplanes to the world. We don't export arms to the world. We don't export pharmaceuticals to the world. What is that we export? We export crafts and arts to the world. And we earn actually a lot of foreign exchange which comes to the, to the Reserve Bank of India. Same way, if you see lots of craftsmen or artisans working in Gulf countries, Kerala is the best example. And I'm sure everybody sends more than $100 a month to their families. So these are the arguments I was trying to give that day, that it's not that we need not to be looked after. We add to the GDP of this country. If somebody does actual correct calculation, because I'm not an economist, but this was the what you call hastily calculation which I did. But I would request you if you could do it in your own areas, then we could argue it more, more strongly. So I'm now in a place like this when it's just that we are as unorganized sector as the laborers who you saw on streets, on the highways. Now it's not, after all, let government tell me how much foreign exchange they earn through other means. Recently I was reading somewhere that 6% of foreign exchange is earned through crafts and textiles and whatever. You can find out. If some of you who understand economics, they could, do this study and let's know. So it are these issues which we need to raise now. By saying, please do this, they won't. So I think that now the strategy has to change. It's not sometimes, even say a minister of culture also has to have an argument with the Ministry of Finance. To argue with them, boss, this is how much we contribute, therefore what is our share? Therefore, these arguments have to come. I tried to do that that day on webinar, actually. There was some other,
It's a very, very long session going on, and Prashant has told me he wanted to ask something, maybe one or two questions, and when it's almost 1:30. Prashant, if you want to ask something, please do it quickly.
Sir, hope you're doing fine. Sir, I have a question. Actually, you said for an actor, he should use his voice, a sound. He should make a sound only when when a space for his physical acting ends. Am I right, sir?
No, I said he can do that also. After all, there is a physicality can help you actually to control your whole breathing. It can be one of the ways. I'm not saying that's the final solution.
Yeah, that means I have a doubt. Actually, what I doubt is we should use our voice very less in theater acting, or what's your concept?
No. You are saying we should use less voice.
Should we use less voice rather than physical acting?
No. Both have to be used equally. Actually, I don't think you should. You should say that one less, one more. It depends on different theater productions, and it depends on different groups.
Correct.
Everybody has his own way. I'm not giving a sermon that do this way or do that way. This is what I would like to do. Where I'm not saying that I do non-verbal theater. I use a lot of text actually, but I'm only how I use that text, because I do a lot of physical activity. Therefore, it becomes important for me to see how my text is used within as a part of my physicality. So then, otherwise, everybody has his or her own ways of doing it. It can't be something. It can't be because I don't think we are here to give formulas to each other. We are only sharing how I do it, and you are sharing how you do it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Supriya Samajdar has typed a question about intimate theatre practice for few, like 40 to 60 audience, and then its possibilities in Bharat Rangam also, NSD, etc. How you, Supriya, you want to put it in words so that others can hear and
Can I say? Okay. Sir, thank you for your discussion.
Thank you.
And understanding the pain behind love, which I wrote it here. That is a very great, what I say as an actor, it's a very tough job to understand that kind of pain. And the other thing I just want to know, what is an actor for you? Just a simple word, an actor. How you see this, the actor? And the other is, this is a very, I say that, beside this, because in West Bengal, we are practicing intimate form of theater for last 23 years. And in West Bengal, our state theater academy, including this intimate theater section for last 5-6 years. So for sake of this form, why not National School of Drama, the National Festival, Bharat Rangam Mahotsav, why not put this section in their festival? Because their festival is like a general applications, and they choose that where they put this play, maybe in intimate or wherever. So if there is a section of intimate theater, then more like our group or in West Bengal, in other parts of India, they can apply, or this kind of form maybe practice more. Just is
You know,
my.
I agree with you. For instance, I would put it other way around. I would say they should in fact do a festival. We should be not called a festival for intimate spaces. I would say they should do a festival of alternative spaces. You know, so that these are alternative spaces actually. And this is something which has been happening in this country. If there is somebody doing a theatre for 50 people, it's a theatre, it's an alternate space. If somebody, ultimately, every space is an intimate space, whether you like it or not. A performer doing a ritual in a temple, rest of it is only a background, but the amount of space is taking, and the people who are watching, you know, who are surrounding that performance is only 100 people, because that is physically only possible that much. Therefore, even that is an intimate space. If I am performing under a tree, therefore the tree itself becomes a very intimate space.
Due respect, just because yesterday there was a discussion, so I just share my views. I agree your views that every space is intimate space, that here we are also in intimate space. So if we define in that way, that everything is in intimate, but as you discussed before, that your way of methodology of an actor is different, but they are actor, and our methodology of acting style is different, they also actor. So there are difference between in every approach. So in that way, in intimate, where I am suggesting that there is a space where it's a closed way, and like a studio theater. So in their way of acting style, their way of designing the play is different, not in the same way like in a masjid or in a temple. So the actor are different, the way of communication is different.
Sure, that's true. I agree with you.
So this is not in a general way that this is the alternative or something like this.
No,
This is a very particular form, like a proscenium theater, like a folk theater. This is also an intimate theater form, which I believe, and this is also in abroad. There are a lot of people practicing in a very serious form. So in that way, it's my just to know, because it's not that why, because this is their choice, what kind of theater they promote and what kind of theater they don't promote.
No, but I agree with you, and I 100% agree with you. It's a different kind of theater. It's a different kind of space where you are doing. It needs a different kind of approach. And I think there should be festivals like that, you know. The problem is actually it's very difficult for anybody to understand. It will take them some time to understand. You know, there is, after all, they can do more intimate theatre festival, which is happening in other parts of the world. They can do it here also. And for which I think they need to think about it. Actually. Maybe you could write a proposal to them. I'm nobody in NSD.
No. I just share my view.
No, it's a good idea. It's a good idea.
We have a forum. It's called FITA, Forum for Intimate Theatre Activists, and we communicate to the director of National School of Drama, and maybe we are discussing. So I just share.
No, you are right. Actually, even for instance, you know, we sometimes do. We also try to do. Where I rehearse, we have our space which is around 40 by 50. So every time we don't have, sometimes, you know, you get also bored with performing everywhere. So then sometimes we feel as performers, let's perform for each other, and if there could be 50 people also, you know, your friends. So we perform in that space. So it gives us a different kind of feeling. And the acting also changes. Yes. Even our makeup changes. Because that loudness which we have for other places, that loudness becomes, you know, it's like a gesture which takes a 20 feet space. I have to reduce it to 1 feet space, you know. Therefore, that changes. Therefore, it is a flexibility of the actor. That's what I'm saying. For me, actor is a flexible phenomenon, that he can adjust to any space, And that's the kind of work I would like to do. And it is like you said, what is actor to me? You see, what is a paint to a painter, and a brush to a painter, and a canvas to a painter? For me, he's all three things together. He's a brush to me, he's a paint to me, and he's a canvas to me. Because I can't make painting without him. Therefore, I begin with him actually as a canvas. I paint him as a painter, and I use my brush. Therefore, I can't do anything without him, and it's not possible actually. I can't say that no, but I'm at the same time thinking there are other mediums also within the theatre which needs to be given equal respect also. If there is a carpenter who has added something to you, or a prop maker, he can't be treated as a second-grade citizen in the performance, because he has also contributed. Because ultimately, what is performance is the contributions of many people who contribute to a performance and make a performance. Sometimes, we tend to say that it's only the actor who is very important. I'm not saying he's not important. It's like ultimately the paint is when I say that he's a paint to me, but somebody has created this paint for me. So therefore, everybody is ultimately the collective, the collage of many things together. Therefore, we need to give equal respect to others also who are contributing to it. There are people who are trying to create a disruption. No, so and so is not important. Everybody is important ultimately in a performance.
Thank you, sir.
So, thank you all for this very long session. And when a person like Bansi with a lot of experience and original idea and very elegant and daring to speak, and a group of enthusiastic theatre people, active theatre directors and students, friends come together. We cannot stop talking. We can go on for any length of time, but already 1:30 and we have to